Born into a very poor family in New Delhi, Lakshmi Agarwal was destined to be married off at a young age. Child marriage, still very much prevalent in India, is one of the most common ways in which low-income families, unable to support their children properly, choose to provide a future for them. One day, Naeem Khan, a 32-year-old man, approached 15-year-old Agarwal with a proposal, and she declined, as she felt she had the freedom to do. Unfortunately for her, Khan wasn't too pleased with hearing no, and one evening near Tughlaq Road in New Delhi, Khan and two friends attacked the minor with acid, disfiguring her face and her body. In the past 5 years, India has seen over 1,500 acid attacks, and many survivors choose to share their stories. Agarwal went on to advocate for other acid attack victims and curtail the sale of acid in India. Her nonprofit, the Lakshmi Foundation, helps victims recover from their attacks, mentally, physically, and financially. As with any mass media coverage, a fairy tale ending can cause a nationwide sensation. But the virality of such stories are often based on certain angles. These angles are used to sell stories by embedding them in a mixture of psychological theories known as the Cinderella complex and the Savior complex. Let's talk about them. Sarah A. Benton, AADC of Psychology Today, describes the Savior complex as a psychological construct that makes a person feel the need to save other people. These people have a strong tendency to seek out others who desperately need help and assist them, often putting their own needs last. Now, the Cinderella complex, first described by Colette Dowling, is the innate need for a person to be taken care of by someone else, a subconscious fear of independence. We're able to learn of brave stories such as Lakshmi's through the power of the media from the lens of empowerment and persistence. However, not every victim is lucky enough to be portrayed as her own Prince Charming. There's a popular social media post of a similar attack victim moving on with her life after her incident. In her story, her husband poured acid on her face over a dowry debacle with her family. Divorced and disfigured, this strong woman was able to overcome her trauma, and in the process, just so happened to fall in love. The post reads, "When one man takes her happiness away by throwing acid on her face, another man brings the happiness back by marrying her." A seemingly well-intentioned tweet that was later trending on popular social media platforms, such as Twitter and Facebook. If we start to question why we are attracted to such stories, we begin to ask ourselves, is the story really about her facing a second chance at life and getting married? Or is it about her being given a second chance at life because of marriage? That distinction becomes really important. As beautiful as our Prince Charming story is, the issue with the story being depicted in the perspective that it's written in rests solely on the focus shift from the victim to the man who is giving her a second chance by marrying her. When such articles are centered around the man giving the woman a second chance, it subliminally erases the concept of struggle the survivor had to endure. The years of mockery, the months of depression and anxiety, the hospital bills paid, the family disownment, the loss of self-identity and worth, showcasing her years of turmoil as battle scars endured only to lead to the happy ending of marriage, as if we could equate a lifetime of sorrow to tying the knot. When media plays on these angles, portraying the victim as Cinderella, and in this case the new husband as a savior, we are not only embedding psychological power imbalances and distances in this relationship, but we're also perpetuating these dynamics in a culture that fundamentally runs on sexism and misogyny. Now, as more and more of these stories hit popular newsstands and news stations, it washes over society's beliefs, aggravating the Cinderella and the Savior complexes in regular households and relationships. A woman who lays down her independence with the belief that her husband will provide her the necessities for survival, and a man who undertakes that burden with the faith that he's his wife's savior, sets a path for relationship mistreatment. What began as a slight power imbalance can lead to a dark road of manipulation and domestic abuse, as each partner feels entitled to their roles, holding them hostage in their situation with the chains of their mirage beliefs. You may be wondering, what does a privileged Indian immigrant turned US citizen know about the cultural struggles of acid attacks? Well, to understand, we must first break down the unspoken agreement I signed when I added being Indian to my identity. So here's a checklist: what to do and what not to do. First, to do: get good grades, go to a well-established university, secure a high-paying job, get married, have kids, and pave the way for their future. Pretty straightforward. Second, what not to do. Don't wear revealing clothing you never know when your future husband or his family might see. Don't drink, don't smoke, and no bad habits. But if your future husband has them, it's okay. It's hard to find a perfect man these days anyway. Don't post controversial things on social media. People still agree with sexism and racism and classism. What if your future husband is one of these people and you turn him off by being too progressive? Don't go on too many dates. They'll see the bad things about you. Just go directly to marriage so they can't leave you, because divorce doesn't exist if you don't acknowledge it, right? If I, who immigrated into a culture that does not directly support arranged marriage, has sparse cases of acid attacks, and is seemingly more progressive than underserved countries, was still being held to these terms and conditions, I began to wonder, was this due to the perpetuation of Indian culture in America, or support for these ideologies from America's fair share of Cinderella and savior complexes? While we may not hear of misogyny through the lens of acid attacks, that does not undermine the prevalence of a male-dependent culture preserved in society through a patriarchal system. Between 960,000 and 3 million incidents of domestic violence are reported each year. It is estimated that more than 10 million people in the US experience domestic violence annually. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner contact sexual violence, and intimate partner stalking, with effects such as injury, fearfulness, post-traumatic stress disorder, use of victim services, and contraction of sexually transmitted diseases. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience some form of intimate partner physical violence. This includes a range of behaviors: slapping, shoving, pushing, and in some cases might not even be considered domestic violence. 1 in 7 women and 1 in 25 men have been injured by an intimate partner, and 1 in 10 women have been raped by an intimate partner, while data is still unavailable on men. But here is the shocking part about these statistics. 1 in 3 women are more likely to stay with their partner after an abusive encounter, while only 1 in 68 men make that same decision. If you Google, "why do people stay in abusive relationships?" you'll see articles pop up titled, 8 reasons why women stay in abusive relationships. One of the top 5 reasons why is attributed to the Cinderella complex. Women are more likely to believe they deserve to be treated with the disrespect their partner throws at them, and more likely to believe that relationships require submissive compromise. This is America's acid attack. The Cinderella complex that keeps women submissive and compliant in dangerous and extreme situations trickles down into everyday society. Stories and media coverage of victims choosing to stay with their attackers after their attack states that women were scared of isolation. They believed they could change the man because he was meant to be better, or simply they hoped he would go back to being the person they initially fell in love with. That is America's acid attack. Let's return to our original image. This specific one went viral on social media, with most comments crediting the man for giving the woman new identity and hope. As someone who works heavily in the media and entertainment field, I suggest when covering stories such as this, focus on the victim and portray the story mainly from their perspective of hope and triumph rather than savior and the saved. He did nothing great by marrying her just because she's a victim of a society that openly allows attack weapons to be sold. He said yes, and she said yes. So why focus on him? It's because certain societies will pay more attention to stories told from these angles. It's common in, to run with this example, Indian cultural movies and media, where the hero always saves the day and the heroine is only there to be a love interest. But by putting more of these angled stories out there, we are perpetuating these ideas in a culture that is inherently sexist to begin with. As a country that has struggled with a sexist society for generations, bringing such a power dynamic to light under the guise of a happily ever after can unknowingly cause the gender gap to widen in the name of love. Now, with this new power imbalance, we have psychologically crushed the victim from moving past her attack, and she will continue to be viewed as such because that is the kind of society she's living in. Whatever the culture may be, women are more likely to believe they need someone to save them after the occurrence of a disastrous incident. The Cinderella complex, disguised in Disney cartoons and Pixar movies and Lifetime holiday specials, will continue to aid the savior complex and widen the gender gap in every society. Thank you.